I love the look of old books in home decor. So today I thought it would be fun to transform some of these old books that we have in our stash or collect from thrift stores and turn them into some beautiful fall crafts. Let's get started. I found this book from the thrift store and I loved how the exterior looked. It's in German and it says Wanderings of a Hunter. It's a really old book. And it has Gothic script in it, which is something I cannot read. And I know my husband speaks German, but he even says that it's a difficult script to read. So I felt okay transforming this book into a fall journal for myself. As you can see, I am removing some of the pages. These pages have some photographs on them. So I'm going to pull those all out, set them aside for later use. The reason why you need to remove some pages from your book is to allow yourself some room to work in. I like to add things into my books that are for journals, such as pressing flowers or adding some art or other embellishments. And if you just add it straight into a book as is, it's going to get super, super bulky. So if you remove some pages like I am doing here with a sharp craft knife, it'll allow you some room on the inside to play around. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And just so you know, you can hand make journals yourself if you'd like, but I really like to transform old books into some journals for myself. So I'm going to take 2 pages once I've emptied out the book. You could see how it was thinned down. And I'm going to be using some really good glue sticks here. So I started off with this one, but I didn't realize how dried out this particular glue stick was until I tried another one, which I'll show you here in a bit. But in the meantime, I'm just going with this glue stick, adding a bunch of glue to one page, making sure I'm going right up to the edge of the page. And then you're going to take the other page, pull that over, and you want to use a bone folder or a plastic card and smooth that out from the spine over. That will remove any air bubbles and give you a really good adhesion between the 2 pages. You can see how there's a fun picture here on the inside. I wanted to keep that. I thought it would be a fun addition to include in this fall journal that I am creating. So I'm going to demonstrate how to add the pages together again. The reason why you want to do this is these pages are delicate and I want to be able to work on these pages, and this will sturdy them, allowing you to get artsy and craftsy with them. All right, so here's the glue stick I ended up changing to, and it was working way better. So I have now glued some pages together. I'm going to go over one of these pages with some clear gesso. Now, the reason why I want to do this is I want to prep the surface of my paper to allow me to play around with some wet mediums such as watercolor or acrylic paints. As I said before, these pages are really delicate, and if I were just to go straight over with watercolor, I would end up destroying the pages. So I'm going to give a generous coat. You might even want to give this 2 coats of the gesso, allow it to dry, and you can see how the script still shows through. It will have a matte finish to it and it will feel quite gritty. That's just the nature of the clear gesso. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some watercolor over this just to add some color to the page. I like to prep some of my journal pages for me to play with later on. Sometimes I just find that it's really good to just add a bit of color. It just kind of helps to just break that mental block that we may sometimes run into when we're getting creative. And then I'm going to take a rag and dab some of that paint off. You can see how it just creates a really interesting texture, and you can continue to see the script underneath, which is a really fun feature. I'm going to go ahead and add another color here. This is where you can just have fun and play around. If you find another book that you want to transform in this way, you can just adapt them to any season. But as I said, this one is going to be specifically for the fall for me. So now I'm going to just set it aside, allow it to dry well. Once it's all nice and dry, you can move on to another section in your journal. And I am just going to start to play around here. I took 3 pages further into my journal here, and I'm going to tear a corner out. As I seen this technique, I think it might have been on Instagram or maybe Pinterest. I can't remember exactly where. But what they did was just tore some paper. You can rip a corner or even a center circle out of your 3 book pages. You want them all to be somewhat even, so that's why I tore them all together. You're going to need some packing tape. And then what I'm going to do is take that center page, put a protective sheet in between, and apply the packing tape over that torn corner. I'm going to do my best to line up one of the edges of the piece of tape to the edge of the book page. I'm going to smooth that down carefully. My tape wasn't wide enough, so I'm just getting another piece, and I'm going to go ahead and add that over the torn page. Smooth that out. Then you want to carefully lift the tape up. You do not want to be too harsh here because you don't want to tear your paper. Moving the craft mat over, and then I'm going to put a pressed leaf that I have into the sticky side of the tape. So at this point, the sticky side of the tape is facing up. Once you have that pressed leaf in place, you're going to add some more packing tape over top. Just be very careful when you're lining everything up again. I'm trying to minimize the amount of cutting I have to do here. But of course, if you get that wrong, that's totally fine because you can just trim it off. So I'm going to go ahead and then put my other little piece of tape here down, press it nicely. Make sure you don't get any air pockets in your tape if you can avoid that at all. Gently lift that up and then trim off any excess tape. Again, you want to make sure it's all lined up with your book page. The packing tape is really nice to use because it's nice and thin. It's not going to add too much bulk to your page. So now, once you've got that all trimmed up, you are going to take the last page of your 3 pages and you're going to use your craft mat again, and you're going to apply some glue. Again, a really good glue stick that you really like, especially focus around that torn corner. And then you're going to smooth the page that's got the pressed leaf and tape down. Smooth that out with your bone folder. And then you're going to take the first page out of the 3 pieces that you selected. And you're going to do the same process. You want to make sure you add lots of glue around the torn page because that's where it's going to stick to your tape. I don't know how well this glue is going to adhere to the tape. So far it's holding up just fine, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and press those pages together, and there you have a fun little nature window that you have added to your journal. I thought this was a really fun touch. And of course you can play around with that and do different shapes or whatever you'd like. Okay, so for this page, I'm going to use some white gesso. The white gesso is going to cover up some of the script, so I'm just going to lightly apply it, as the addition that I'm going to apply here will affect how the script shows up. So I did want to kind of cover that up a bit. So I'm using the Artist Loft brand here, and it's a nice smooth consistency. I do have a video all about gesso that'll be linked down in the video description below. Okay, this is the addition. It is a skeletonized magnolia leaf that I had found out on a nature walk. And I'm gonna be using a glue stick and hot glue to adhere this to the page. So the hot glue will give instant adhesion, whereas the glue stick, it will take a little while to dry. And I did have to go in and add a bit more. I just added it directly to the page because I knew the glue stick would end up tearing our beautiful skeletonized leaf here. So I did have to go in and add just a little bit of washi tape as well, just for not only adhesion, but also for a decorative element. But it definitely helped to hold that stem into place really well. So I'm adding a craft mat, closing that part up, and then that should press it together. I'm going to open up another section of our book. I'm just playing around here, giving you some ideas on different ways that you can use your fall journal here. I have got a dried oak leaf and I've got these labels. I thought this would be a fun touch. I had a label here that had a maple leaf on it, but I didn't like the color combination, so I ended up using one of the other ones. And just to let you know too, oak leaves have got a higher oil content to them, so they really dry nicely. Okay, I like the way that looks. So I'm going to glue everything in place and just tell you why I decided to add or create a fall journal for myself. So it turns out I have absolutely fallen in love with fall over the years. It's the time of year I love to go foraging the most. And so I wanted to create myself a journal where I can document some of my journeys or collect things and add them in here. I thought it would just be a fun, memorable piece. I will practice drawing and sketching, maybe adding some quotes, adding some pictures that I may take of some of our foraging adventures or just nature walks. Even if we do like a little camping trip here or there, I just realized how much I love fall, and I thought it would be a great thing to add to my collection. It's something then I could also put on our coffee table once it's all done. I really love this idea. So here are just a few ideas for you to do in your journal if you decide to do this. Let me know if you do decide to put one of these together. And over time, I'm going to continue to work on this. I will also continue to glue some pages together. I'm just going to show you quickly here how I am also going to use this book to press some flowers or leaves or anything that you find. So I've got this Corydalis that I had in my front yard. I love the little yellow flowers and the green leaves. The green leaf that I use down in the bottom corner is actually a pressed Corydalis leaf, so I thought this would be fitting. They press really, really well, so if you have some, I highly suggest it. I also picked some dried grasses that I had in my front yard, and I thought it would be just kind of fun to add a little cluster of them on a page. There's no right or wrong way on how you use your nature journals, so just feel free to have fun. Like I said before, you can even just hand make one if you'd like. If using a book doesn't feel right to you, that's totally understandable. But I find that a lot of books from the thrift stores end up in the landfill, so I thought this would be a great way to reuse one. All right, I wanted to add a closure to my journal. I've cut down a strip of some coffee-dyed cotton fabric that I had in my stash, just removing the excess thread as I find that they always end up getting in my way. And I'm just keeping this very simple. You can decorate the exterior of your book if you'd like, but I loved what it said and how it looked on the cover, so I wanted to leave it. You can see the spine is damaged, so I felt fine gluing my fabric to the spine of this book and putting that in place. It's just a really easy addition for a closure. Just wrap that around, and then all I have to do is just tie it in a simple bow and it is ready to use. This is the perfect size to throw in a backpack or in a little bag or tote of some kind. I just absolutely love how this little journal turned out. So now you may be wondering what to do with all those book pages that we took out of that book. Well, I've got a couple of ideas for you. I'm going to start off with this one, and I'll show you another one a little later. I'm going to take some cardstock. I'm just using a neutral color that's a little bit darker, so then it kind of can show through our book page. I'm going to trim this down. I am going to trim it down to 5x7. I am using my paper trimmer, but of course you could use a steel ruler and a craft knife to cut them down as needed. Or you can measure it out and then use some scissors to cut them out. All right, I'm going to be using this really good glue stick again. I just picked this up from my local dollar store. I don't even know what the brand is, but it's been working really well for me. I'm going to go ahead and apply some glue to the cardstock, and then I'm going to be lining this up. So then it's just going to be going over the script. And when I shine it up against a light, I can see the paper through I can see the cardstock through the sheet of paper. And I know that I've got the script showing. I'm going to be trimming off the excess, and you can see how the script is in the center of that paper. I've put it through my printer and my inkjet printer, and these are the images I printed out. They are some fall floral images that I got off of creativefabrica.com. I'll have those linked down below for you to check out or find any images that you like. You can see how I used a clipboard for one of them, and then I'm going to place these in some brass frames for a set. This is a really easy and simple way to use up those pages for some art. Putting them on the cardstock helps to make them nice and sturdy so they'll go through your printer really well without any issues. I think I would have probably had a higher saturation for these images, but I'm still happy with how they turned out. So this is another book that I picked up from the thrift store. It's an old one, $2.99, and this one has got music in it. I didn't know that when I first bought it. I thought it was just another one of those gothic script books, but this one's got some sheet music in it. And I'm taking 3 pages and I'm going to roll them together like this. And I'm decided to use 3 as I wanted to turn this into a centerpiece. Now, this is something that I had seen on Pinterest. Maybe you have as well. And I've really been wanting to try it out, and I thought this book would be perfect for it. I liked that it had an orange cover. I thought it was perfect for fall. So to adhere the pages, I rolled the 3 together, added some glue to the spine, and curled the pages down into the glue. I didn't have to add very much glue. I didn't want to because I didn't want to create too much bulk. But that was the center of the book as well. So that was my centerpiece. And then on the right side, I'm doing the same thing, curling the pages over, adding glue and pressing those pages into the glue. And then I'm going to work on the opposite side, and I'm going to go back and forth, keeping both sides even as I go along. Depending on the size of your book will determine how many rolls you will need on each side, but now I needed to stagger them out. So you can see how I had it offset a little bit. I put that into place, and now I'm adding some glue just underneath the pages to help to hold that in place. And then I did the same on the opposite side, and I'm going to continue to do that until I have got a look that I'm really happy with. So I think this will be a good base for me to work on. I like how that is looking. You can still see some of the music notes and the words, which I like. Now I've gathered up some fall florals and some greenery that I had, just some faux fall florals and greenery that I had on hand. Some of these I have had for years, and I thought this would be a perfect project to use up some of those little bits that we always hang on to. So what I like to do is just take my larger items and put those into place, and then I'll glue them. And I got like some florals from Michael's that I picked up years ago from my local dollar store, some pieces that I got from Dollar Tree, just lots of different places. And I like to use these things over and over again. This hydrangea is absolutely gorgeous. I think it's perfect for fall, and I like just all the different textures here as well. Just have fun with this. You could even add some dry florals if you'd like. I think that would be really pretty as well. Some dried grasses would be really pretty. Some pine cones maybe that you foraged, some moss, twigs, anything you'd like. I decided today that I would just stick with these fall florals as so a lot of times I add some real elements, but sometimes I just want to just play around with some different elements and see the different designs that I can come up with. So at this point I was keeping things pretty neutral and I felt like I wanted just a little punch of color. So I've got these beautiful golden yellow flowers that I picked up from Dollar Tree. I really like the texture that they give, and it really just adds just enough color that I'm happy with. So I just place them where I'd like, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue those into place as well. And I think this would be a really fun idea for any season, really. You just have to find the right book depending on the season that you are creating for. I'm going to show you another idea on how to use up those book pages. You're going to need a flat surface, a steel ruler, and a craft knife. I'm going to just trim off the excess paper around the script. I really like the script and I wanted that to be a feature of this project. So now I'm measuring the center of the top and bottom of this project, and I'm going to take my pencil and ruler and just use a very sharp craft knife and cut that into two, and it should be nice and even. So now I'm going to be using a selection of some thin die cut sets. I've got this skeletonized leaf and some botanicals. Here's the number and the name of each of the sets that I have. And then I am also going to be using my die cutting machine for this project. But first I want to select the die that I want to use. I am going to just go through them all and see which ones fit best. And then I'll show you what ones I am using. So if you don't have anything like this, you could use stickers. If you have a Cricut machine, you could use that. Another option would be to use some paper punches, or if you can find some shapes in stores anywhere, or even hand cut something, you could do that as well. So this is the one that I decided to use out of the wildflower set. And then I'm going to go through my skeletonized leaves and see which ones will fit as well. So I am going to be cutting these out. Again, like I said before, I am going to be using my Sizzix die cutting machine. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put these into place and cut out the images. What's going to happen is I am going to have a cut out silhouette of this leaf and the wildflower. And then I also will have the actual cut out part of this leaf and the wildflower to use. So I am going to be having 4 pieces to work with in total, which is going to be a really great way to use up these book pages. So I'm going to be using my weeding tool here, and that will help me to remove the paper because it is thin and delicate. And it will also allow me to poke out any of the excess bits that are left behind. So once you have all your paper pieces all ready to go, you can go through your stash of cardstock and select some beautiful fall colors. I'm going to be cutting these down to 2 inches wide, and I'm going to leave them 8 inches long. These are going to be beautiful bookmarks for your fall reading, or you can even add them to your fall journal that we've made. I'm going to be using a glue stick again, and I'm going to just decide on which ones I want to go on to our different colors. And then the glue, you just want to add it in a few spots. This is going to just give you some temporary adhesion. It'll just help you to work with the pieces more easily. So I'm going to center it on the bottom, so I've got a nice even border around the sides and the bottom. And then I am going to be going in and cutting off the excess. I decided to leave it full length because I wasn't exactly sure how much I would need to trim off to create a nice even frame all the way around our book page. So I'm going to go ahead and add some glue to this flower and then put it into place. And I will be using the other two as a guide on how much I need to trim off the top and just the top of these as well. So once you have those in place, you can then go and take one of these full pieces of the book page there, and I'm going to create an even border all the way around, as you can see, and then I will line it up with this one with just the skeletonized leaf on it. Again, lining things up so then they are all nice and even. They're all going to be the same size. You can see how beautiful those look. I really like it. I am going to be using some thermal laminating pouches. I put these all into place already. And I'm going to be using my laminating machine here. And then I'm going to go ahead and feed those through. Now, if you don't have a laminating machine, you could try to use some packing tape. I've seen people do that. Or you could even use some self-laminating sheets, which you can get I've even seen them at dollar stores, which is worth a try. So I've got them all laminated. Now I'm going to just trim off the excess plastic. You just want to make sure that you have enough around each bookmark that's all nice and sealed up so they don't end up falling apart on you. Once you have those all trimmed up, you can try to use a corner rounder punch. I ended up jamming mine, so then I had to go in later and cut them off with some scissors. It just ended up being such a mess, but I did try, but I did end up using my scissors off camera. Now I'm going to punch a hole into the top of each one. I went a little bit far down. I wish I would have maybe punched it a little bit higher, but I made do with what I had. There was no going back now. I'm going to use some twine, and I started off with tying just a basic knot at the at the top, which is fine. And you could just leave this as is. You could even use some yarn. That would be a really pretty touch too. But as I was looking at it, I'm like, it would be kind of fun to add another layer of embellishment to this. So I went into my stash of some laser cuts and I found all these leaves, acorns, and little mushrooms that I had. And I thought these would be so fun to add to the ends of our strings. So I went ahead and did that. I started off with the mushrooms, but as I was working, I'm like, man, this looks a little awkward. I feel like the strings weren't laying properly. So I just continued to work on these. You could add some buttons if you'd like, if you have that. You can just leave them as is even. You can maybe even try adding some little beads. That might be fun. But you can see how they kind of are all over the place. So what I decided to do is untie them and then tie the two strings into a double knot like you see me doing right there. And the strings laid so much better. They weren't all over the place. So I went ahead and did that to all of the bookmarks, and I was so much happier with that. And I think these are going to be a great addition to my fall journal. So these old books are from my stash. They were actually my great grandmother's. They are in the German Gothic script, and her name is even in these books, which is so cool. You can see how fragile they are. This one has lost its cover, but the spine is really cool. I love how old and earthy they look. I think they're just so fun. And I knew they would be perfect to create a fall decor piece. Now, I have done a stacked book piece before. I'm going to have the video for that linked down below for you to check out. But I wanted to try doing this with this particular book. But you can see, since they're so delicate, I needed to stabilize them. I'm using some fabric strips. Again, they're coffee dyed cotton fabric strips. I'm just going to wrap them like a present. What this is going to do is allow you to work on top of the books without having to adhere any glues to them Once you add glue to them, you could potentially wreck them forever, and I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to be just working on top of these pieces of fabric. So I'm going to, like I said, wrap them up with like a gift. This will really add some stability. And as you can see, what I did was cut them down and glued all the pieces together just with my hot glue gun. So I'm really happy with how stable that is now. I added another little dollop at the top, and now I'm going to add a wood slice. This is a birch wood slice. I just picked this up from my dollar store. I find that it's just easiest to buy them there. This was a little bit bigger than what I was hoping for, but I did make do. I'm going to adhere it to the top of our wood stack. So I'm going to add some glue and press that glue into the fabric. I'm being very careful not to get it on the book cover. I'm going to use a selection of some ceramic mushrooms that I had. Again, I found these at my local dollar store. I'm going to be replacing the ceramic stems with some branches. This is something I like to do with these particular mushrooms, as well as some faux trees. I do that quite regularly. It just really helps to create a unique look to all the pieces. So I added some glue to the top, pressed that down into place. And this particular one, the stem had already been popped off. I'm adding some extra glue just to help to provide some stability. You want to hold it in place until the glue sets. So I've got some two different heights there, and I'm going to pop the stem out of this one. It came off really well, and I created another one that's a little taller. I wanted some different heights. Got this cute little ceramic owl from my husband's Oma, and a pumpkin that I had in my stash, some branches and pine cones, and a selection of some fall florals. So all I'm going to do is start to layer my natural elements. I like to start off with my branches and get those into place. I'm just going to use some hot glue and then put that onto the wood slice that I've got here. And I'm going to go ahead and add another branch. And what I like to do is just add some glue where the touch points are. Again, you want to just trim things down to as needed, but here I'm adding a little bit of hot glue to the one branch, pressing the top branch into place, adding some glue on the other end, and those were the points where they were touching, and those will hold into place now. I'm going to figure out where I want to add my mushrooms. I'm going to go ahead and add a dollop of glue onto the wood slice, place my bottom stem of my mushroom into place, and you want to hold that until it sets. Once it sets, you can go ahead and add some extra glue just for some added stability to make sure it's not going to topple over. And now I'm going to go ahead and start to add some preserved reindeer moss. You can use some Spanish moss instead if you like. I like the way preserved reindeer moss looks. It looks like a forest floor to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the base. I wanted to get all my larger elements into place first before I added my moss. Then I knew for sure they would hold into place and they wouldn't accidentally get knocked off or anything. This is also a good time to camouflage any glue that may be showing. Okay, so now I'm going to add my pumpkin, but before I glue it into place, I'll just put it in the spot that I thought looked good. And then I'm also going to add my owl. Again, same thing. Added some glue to the bottom of the owl, place it on the branch because that's where I thought it looked so cute. And I decided to leave the pumpkin right where it was. You can see the bottom of it was ripped off, but that is okay. You're not going to see it once you've got that glued into place. I think the pumpkin adds a nice punch of color. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start to add some other elements. I've got my pine cones. These are foraged. I do have a full video on how to forage and take care of your pine cones in a video down below for you. Adding some more branches. Just get really creative here. This is a fun piece. It's going to look very original. I wanted to tie in the color of our pumpkin, so I'm going to go ahead and add these orange florals. I left some nice long stems on these so I can have some height, as well as have them kind of sticking out with the branches as you see me doing there. And another thing I like to do is to add a little bit to the back. That helps to create some depth to your pieces as well. So since this is looking like a whimsical woodland forest, I thought ferns were a perfect addition. So you saw me earlier trimming off some little fern fronds off of a larger stem that I had. So I did the same here, and I'm going to add those in here and there. And I thought it was just such a fun and whimsical addition. So I wasn't going to, but then I decided I would add some fairy lights. I have a silver strand of fairy lights here that I picked up from Dollar Tree, but I know you can get some copper wire. So I am going to replace these with some copper wire instead. But in the meantime, I'm just going to show you what the silver looks like. If you do just have silver, you want to make sure that you kind of tuck and hide the wire. It's really going to stand out on this one. I also decided not to glue this into place, again, because I am going to be replacing these lights with a copper wire. But even when I replace it, I don't think I'm going to glue the lights into place, just so I can take this apart if I like. But this is absolutely gorgeous. I'm so happy with how it turned out, and it's going to look great on a bookshelf, as you will see. If you're looking for more fall craft ideas, you'll definitely want to check out this video right here. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.